Your mic is muted, JB.
There we go. Take two. I'm still
Uh,
on five, still on cloud nine. There we go. Right. I'm off cloud nine. Professional mode back on. Okay. So welcome to your Sunday night flagship pod with myself, JB, Tommy, and Hef. You probably won't recognise our faces because it's not very often we've been smiling. So I'll come back and introduce the lads in a second. But it has been a roller coaster of a Rangers season, and yesterday was kind of no different. I'm going to do the housekeeping first, get it out the way, because as I say, with all the excitement and everything going on, I'll probably forget. But likes and subscribes on YouTube, guys. Free to follow us and free to subscribe. So please do that. It does help the channel go a really long way, and especially after yesterday, I think everyone wants to try and get as much Rangers content in them as they can. So enjoy it while we're smiling, and let's hope it continues for the rest of the season. We're also on Twitter, Facebook, or X, I should say, Instagram, and all that carry on. So just find us on there for, as I say, we're going to be trying to post as much as we can on there, especially with all the transfer speculation coming up over the next few weeks. Okay, so lads, I'll come to you briefly just to say hello, but smiles like Chris Boyd, please. So, Tommy, how's yourself after yesterday?
I'm good. It's been a good weekend. It was an enjoyable watch. In the pub for it, and the pub was going a bit crazy at one point, so it's always good to watch it with mates as well.
No, very good. And Hef, how about yourself, mate? How was your weekend?
That was good. I was saying to you just before we came online, we sat and watched it in a local bowling club with the bus that we go on. So there's a guy in there who's 88 years old. So to have everybody around him, and my brother was there, and like other members of family and stuff like that, it was brilliant. It was good. The place was absolutely packed, and given the fact that there's only 2,500 people that can get a ticket to go to the game, to see that many people make the effort to go out and watch it together rather than watching it in the house, showed how maybe confident we were going into it, that it would have been a good drinking day. But nah, good day all round, definitely.
No, most definitely was. And we had, I watched it in the club, as I say, did have the chance to go to the game. And then I think it was all the carry on with obviously getting up there, and then obviously the weather warnings, and then the 2 hours before the game, the hour after the game, and all that. And I was trying to weigh it all up with back in work and stuff. So yeah, absolutely heartbroken. But great to see the Bears having a good time in there. We had 15 people booked into the club to watch the match on the Wirral, and I think we ended up with about 60 odd. So it was a cracking wee atmosphere. So no, thanks to everyone that came and made that a great day as well. Cool. Right, let's get into it then. So yes, we'll come to you first, Tommy. So in terms of Hef, we'll come to you first, mate. So starting 11, what were your thoughts when that came out yesterday? I know it was met with mixed bag in terms of people's thoughts, but where was your head at when you seen that come through?
I think we had all spoke about the starting 11 throughout the week, saying that given how well Dujon Sterling had been playing, and I think a few people had thought that maybe Tav was carrying a knock of some kind, that it would have been nice to see Sterling start, but would he have had the kind of gumption to make that call and drop the club captain for such a game? But he went with it, and I don't think that by any means was the worst call of the starting 11. I think Dujon Sterling played very well. I think the back two started really well as well. So on paper, they would have been the two that you would have picked, unless you would have put Sterling into the middle to compensate for Tav being on the right hand side. The midfield three, I knew he was going to go with Asgard just because he's obviously scored 2 and 2, but I was worried about that because I don't think that the goals kind of flattered them a little bit. I don't think he really earned the position in the starting 11 based off performance. If you're going off stats, then maybe, but not on performance levels. And then the front three kind of speaks for itself. I mean, if you think of how we started the season with Mikey Moore playing further out wide with Gassama and a Chermitti or Miovski kind of toss up, it was always that thing of Gassama either out on the right to compensate for Moore on the left, and we didn't really quite know how that was going to work. But no, I thought in terms of how it could have lined up, I don't really think it could have went much better on paper in terms of if you think man for man in the middle of the box. But even their starting 11 when it came out, that's got to be the weakest starting 11 I've seen of a Celtic side in years. So not necessarily even from our point of view, looking at it going, Danny Röhl had came out in the press conference and said that's pretty much what I want my strongest starting 11 to be. So to say that, and then you look at the Celtic one, and that's far from their strongest starting 11 that they would have wanted. I think it is their strongest starting 11 on paper just now, but as a Celtic fan sitting watching that, you're thinking, oof, that is honking, whereas we're sitting going, yes, get in there. Like, even the back three alone is terrible, like so bad. So I was delighted to see their back three, but also just their starting 11 in general. But then coupled up with how it could have went. But I think in the back of your mind, you're always thinking, if Asgard doesn't work and it doesn't play, at least there's Diamande there to come off from the bench, or if Chermitti wasn't an absolute god, then we could have taken him off and put me off on. So there was scope for change, but in terms of what it could have been, I don't think anybody had any real complaints about it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there with your comments on Asgard. That was kind of the questionable position. I know when we podded on, God, it was that Thursday now. I think we spoke around potentially going with a back three, but kind of after seeing it, we put it out on Twitter in terms of what do people want to see from the starting 11, and you've seen all the comments come through, and it was almost like a five at the back probably showed this Celtic team too much respect. And I think in terms of the manager got it bang on in terms of his initial 11. Obviously, as the game went on, a couple of subtle tweaks, but I say we are going to be super positive on this because it's not very often we get a chance. But we've got to talk about the first half. So, Tommy, I'll come to yourself. Everything kind of seemed a little bit all over the place to start with. I thought the midfield wasn't working. Every time the fullbacks moved forward, there was kind of a load of gaps for them to exploit. But what was your kind of reflections on the first half?
I thought we were very poor first half. I think you can safely say it was a game of two halves. I think like they got a lot of joy with that kind of ball in between the centre backs who were getting a lot of joy out of that. We were a little bit sloppy on the ball. I think we were possibly getting in good positions, and then that kind of final pass was poor. I think Mikey Moore had quite a bad first half. I think there was a lot of times he was turning into kind of trouble and getting the ball took off him. Asgard obviously really probably should have came off before half time because he was just killing us as well. So for him to come off at half time, I think that was pretty obvious that was going to happen. Yeah, again, players like Raskin, I thought really poor first half. Fernandez and Suter were a wee bit all over the place. I thought they played all right in the first half, and I thought they probably could have scored a couple more goals. We had probably one chance, the Gassama one, where he's in. And obviously a good save from Schmeichel from that. But then the end of the half, we scored that goal that was about 400 yards offside, I think. Chermitti just staying up. But yeah, I really thought like every second ball just kind of broke to them. And like they were getting the wee pockets of space in the final third, and we were very slow to kind of react to a lot of it. So yeah, I was actually at half time, and I think a lot of people in the pub were kind of feeling the same, that we're not going to get anything out of this game after watching that. That's how kind of poor it was. So obviously, what happened from there was not a miracle, but it's definitely not something that we could have saw happening after watching that first half, really.
Yeah, we'll definitely call it. We'll put it under the Christmas miracle. I think we're still in that. We're still in that season, so we'll see how we go. But yeah, just to highlight a couple of the kind of major incidents throughout the first half. Then, so 7 minutes gone, Fellow Asgard manages to get himself a yellow card. Was chatting this through with my dad today after watching the game back, and you're old firms, you'll get away with certain things. You'll get away with big tackles. You'll get away with kind of leaving one on someone. A little bit of a cheap one that you mightn't get away with in normal games. One thing you're not going to get away with is a stupid pullback. And it kind of just, for me with Asgard, it does feel at times he doesn't seem to get what's going on round about him in terms of the expectation and stuff. I mean, he's chipped in with a couple of goals over the last few weeks, but for you, Tommy, do you kind of felt that left him on a bit of a tightrope, and that reflected within his performance for the rest of the first half?
I think when I watch their goal back, I think there's an opportunity for Asgard to pull Yang, and he can't because of that booking. And then obviously Yang has the opportunity, and I think we really want him to go down the wing. Everybody that was defending him in that moment, Raskin and Fernandez, were kind of like not wanting them to cut in and kind of happy for him to take the route down the wing. I think if Asgard's not on a booking, he could have possibly, because I think we've got to fill there. Somebody has to fill him there, but obviously Asgard can't be that guy. So yeah, I just don't think Asgard's suited for Parkhead. And when we put the tweet out about the starting 11, I went with Diamandi over Asgard, and a lot of people were replying on X, sorry, should I say it, and saying that Diamandi's been poor this season. But I think that kind of game we've seen Diamandi play well in, so I think based on that merit, he should have got the start rather than Asgard. Fair enough, he has been a little bit better, but like Hef kind of touched on as well, like has he been so good that he merited a start? I don't think so, especially not at Parkhead. If we were playing Aberdeen at Ibrox, and yeah, maybe we would have stuck with Asgard, but that kind of high pressure game, I think Diamandi should have been in from the start.
No, I think that's fair. So, as you touched on, 1-0 down after 19 minutes. I mean, if you want to give, not very often we'll give credit, but obviously the lad's been brave. Yang, he's ran direct at the defence. Rangers players have just backed off. There was several, as you touched on there, several opportunities. I think Big Fernandez was still spooked because a couple of minutes earlier he kind of let his man go. But again, I think Celtic, as you touched on there, did have the best of the first half in terms of chances. I think Jack Butland pulled off a really good save from Kenny. Austin Trusty, obviously with the header. And then, but as I say, I know there's question marks about Jack Butland, but we'll get to him in terms of the second half. But we're not here to talk about the first half. That's gone. It's in the past. Hef, in terms of second half, Tommy kind of touched on it there in terms of the big change and little tactical change and stuff. But what were your reflections on first of all the change, and what did you see from that Rangers team moving into the second half?
Well, I thought from the first half that people were talking at half time, and I said, actually, just before the when we got the chance with Gassama, I said that we're 2 passes away from scoring goals here. Like, we're not playing through the midfield. The midfield are fairly redundant just now because you're going up with 3 in the midfield against their 4, potentially 5 if someone drops in or steps up. So we were never going to compete with them in there. What we were probably missing was someone like Tav just to kind of whip that ball round the corner by the midfield and let one of the attackers run onto it. So initially I thought that was probably going to be the sub. A few people in the bowling club were suggesting maybe take Asgard. Asgard was going to come off anyway regardless, but take Asgard off and maybe put Sterling into the middle of the park to bolster up the kind of athleticism in there and let Tav play that pass, just play it right down the channel. That never happened, obviously. We saw Diamandi come on, and I thought, to be honest, if you start with Asgard and bring on Diamandi, I think Diamandi probably gives them a bit more of a question, whereas if you start with Diamandi and he doesn't cut it, if the next option is Asgard, I don't think you're as frightened. I don't think you're as worried with that player coming on. So, no, I thought that when they came out in the second half and they'd obviously made the change of Asgard and Diamandi, I thought that idea of playing it into a player so that he could actually spin and quickly play it down the channel rather than trying to hold on to the ball for too long and bringing on the pressure. I thought that intensity of especially Diamandi, but just to get on the ball, and in the first half it looked as if every way where it was a 50-50 you turned one way or the other, and it just seemed that the one that we decided to turn at, there was a Celtic player right there ready to take the ball off him. From the very start of the second half, it seemed like the opposite, whereas Diamandi was maybe turning and Migoma was running down the wing, so the pass was on. I don't know whether or not it just seemed as if in the first half that the Rangers players didn't know where the other Rangers players were supposed to be. And Danny Röhl had spoke about this in previous press conferences, is that we have to scan the ball before so that we know where the players are before we receive the pass, not as we receive the pass. We're not going to get that time. And I think when he actually spoke about it, it was at the semi-final against them. And that's when he was bringing it up. And he said, when we came out in the second half, we were much better, which is exactly what's happened today. What happened the other day. So I think he's got them in and realised that this is the standard. You know, like we're going to need to be quicker. We're going to need to be sharper. And you see it from the first goal as don't think about it too much. Like play it into where you think the player will be, and 9 times out of 10, that's where the player's going to be. So it paid off really well. The first goal was unbelievable in terms of just showcasing what the message was at half time, in terms of get the midfielders on the ball in the attacking area, but we need to get into that attacking area first, because we were missing a ball carrier just to take the ball off the defenders and run through, because Callum McGregor, like him or dislike him, he's very good at his job in terms of just cutting out that run from that ball carrier. So if we can get beyond him, then play from there, because he's not going to be sitting in front of the centre halves the whole time. He's going to be trying to cut off the attack. And I thought we did that really, really well. So whatever, the message is obviously something to that effect, but if whatever the message was has clearly been taken on, because obviously the first goal's within the first 5 minutes. So whatever it is that's happened, they clearly came out with an intention of changing of formation, changing of tactic, but also a bit more of a rationale in terms of what's at stake here. And I felt like they all came out fighting in that second half.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you've nailed a lot of the big points there in terms of the change. I think for me, the biggest observation was there didn't appear to be as many gaps in the midfield with that once we made that formation change. So the midfield three seemed a lot flatter. So if you think about first half, it kind of just felt really disjointed, and Asgard was almost just like a passenger, and he was a luxury. And I think one of the things, especially when you go into Parkhead, you've got to dominate the game, you've got to dominate the ball, you've got to be in the faces and not show them any respect. And I think the second half lineup kind of moved towards that direction. And that's no coincidence. That's kind of the last two Old Firm games at Parkhead, where a midfield of Raskin, Diamandi and Barron has really complemented each other. I don't think Diamandi did deserve a start, if I'm being perfectly honest, and in terms of going into yesterday. Let's just hope that yesterday was the shake that he needed to kind of showcase the talent that he's got. I think we spoke, all three of us have probably spoke over the last few months in terms of our frustrations with him, but that was more like the Diamandi that we have seen. But we do know that he can do it in Old Firm games. It's your domestic games we kind of need to see a little bit more from that. But we'll see how he gets on. But no, good to see. So you teed us up nice there, mate. 50th minute. In terms of my notes, I put great energy from Dujon Sterling to, in the first place, get us up the pitch. That's something we've really missed in terms of having someone that can just get us from A to B very quickly, as opposed to either an extra pass or the quick ball. Initially, it was a poor delivery, but one thing it did do, it got as I say, got us up the pitch. And if you look at the still from when we're about to take the throw in that we won, we had 7 Rangers players in the opposition half, and that was at pace, because 30 seconds before every Rangers player was back in their own half. So that was great to see. And then Gassama's obviously linked up with Diamandi. Great work from Diamandi initially, and then Chermitti with an exquisite finish. There we go. Get that one on the board. The word exquisite doesn't often follow Rangers pods, but we'll take it. But a great
Chermitti.
Yeah, or Chermitti from Nico Raskin. But Tommy, come to yourself, mate, on this one. What was your reflections on the equalising goal?
Yeah, like you say, Sterling does very well to get forward. I actually really enjoyed watching Sterling yesterday, because I think, like, just in terms of his kind of athletic, part of his game, he's just really good, really fit. And to keep him injury free, obviously we'll maybe try not to talk about the allegations in terms of what's happened, but I think, watching it at the time, right, I was actually annoyed at Connor Barron for letting the ball go out for a throw-in. I wasn't annoyed at that, but then I was annoyed that he threw the ball quickly anyway. So I was like, well, why not just keep the ball in and pass it? Why do you let the ball go out for a throw-in? So then from there, obviously, I think Diamandi's involved, and then Raskin kind of gets it round Trusty. And I've not actually seen a good kind of slowed down replay of the goal yet that really kind of complements what Chermitti does. I think he does do a little flick, doesn't he? But I would love to see a really good angle of it kind of slowed down to see it properly. Because it was a bit of a cheeky finish, wasn't it? Definitely for a guy that hasn't really been scoring, to kind of have the confidence to score in that manner as well. Like, I obviously wasn't expecting it. But very happy nonetheless. Yeah, I thought it was a really, really good finish. It was the only way he could score, it was by doing that, because I think the ball was slightly behind him. So it was the only way that he could have got that ball in the net.
Yeah, no, I was delighted. Well, obviously, we were all delighted, but what really pleased me about it was we looked like a team that was coached in that situation. We actually looked as if players knew where they needed to be. As I say, the ball to release Sterling was kind of, you could see that was worked. The Sama drops in, and then everybody kind of knows their role. I think if you touched on it there, if we keep Dujon Sterling fit as a fullback, I mean, centre half almost looks too easy for him at times. But as a fullback and the energy and the power that he's got, he just absolutely bullied them down the left hand side. So, but yeah, I'd say the goal showed a little bit of everything in terms of quality, well coached, determination, and as I say, that final bit of quality at the end was delighted. But Hef, from yourself in terms of the first goal, how did that one land in the bowling club?
I could just keep keeping an eye on the table, see how many pints were going to fall off as everybody was joking about. But no, I think you're so hung up on the first half that you just want the players to capitalise on those chances, because you see what chances they've passed up and you think, come on, make it count. So when he gets into that position and he plays it across and you see that Chermitti's there, like, that's all Chermitti needs to do there, is just be in a position so that the run in front of the defender, and the goal is empty from where he is. There's nothing that Schmeichel can do there. There's nothing that the defender can do without wiping him out. It's exactly where he needs to be. It's perfect play from a striker who just needs to be a goal scorer. And that's not me blowing smoke up him. I've said now for weeks that I think he was coming good. I thought that he was, out of him and Miovski, I thought that he was one of the better ones. He was the better of the two, and I thought that this was going to be his Old Firm, that he was going to push on and score. And I didn't think he'd score two, but obviously we'll get to that. But no, I thought that, like you said, to see so many players commit themselves forward once we get into that position to support the team, rather than, I don't know how many times in the first half we saw that a break of play and a player would get the ball and just loads of open space in front of them, but no idea what to do, and would just get completely closed down because players were just running forward, standing still, and letting five of them surround them, and we had no answer for it. Whereas we had players supporting by running off, by being in the box, by committing down the wing. It was the complete polar opposite of what we saw in the first half. So no, I was delighted to see such a quick reaction, and I think had it went the other way and they had come out and scored that goal 5 minutes into the second half, we would have been absolutely melted. There's no way that we could have came back from that.
Yeah, I don't think that was my fear. I got it when we got it at half time. I was saying to a few of the lads, it was almost a case of, right, we'll take the 1-0, and just hope that the manager can do something. And as you say, the reaction was fantastic. So just in between the second, then, so a couple of really good saves from Jack Butland. There was one from Maeda, and there was a header from Yang. But in terms of Jack Butland's performance, I'll stick with you, Hef, in terms of this one. So Jack Butland's obviously come in for a bit of criticism. The first goal, you could potentially argue, could have done a wee bit better. I felt, I say, goalkeepers should never really be beat on their front post, I should say. But in terms of Butland, reflecting on Butland's performance overall, what were your thoughts on that? I can see Cubby Cubster in the comments putting man of the match.
I thought that I think if we look at it from like all the saves individually, I think the Kenny one in the first half is shot right at him. I don't really think that's a great save, particularly. I think he can only be there. Like, it smashes it right off him, straight in front of him. I mean, it would have been harder to not save than save. I thought the goal, he needs to do better. I think it takes a wee swerve at the last bit, but even at that, I mean, he's going with where his hands are in terms of the position. It is straight at him, so he should have made himself a bit more, given himself a bit more tolerance there, so to allow for another hand to come over to kind of parry that away. But the save that he makes for the Engels one, I think that's really good, because, I mean, you look at the angle of it, and it's John Souttar's leg has about the space of a ball to get through. There's no way that
was Kenny again, I think. I don't think that was
Engels. I thought that was Engels. Was that Kenny?
Yeah,
sorry, that's
my
my mistake.
Kenny again, yeah.
but he gets down quick. He gets down quick into that bottom post, and I mean, it's a great save, and he parries it out well. It's not as if it just fumbles into the box. It's right out to the byline. But the Maeda one, a great save. He gets really low again to get down to that because Maeda's obviously hoping that he can just slide it underneath him, but he gets down quick. And then the Yang one, it is a good save, but Magoma needs to do so much better at that back post. That is criminal. Like Butland's done well to recover from it, and I think is it Fernandez that makes the kind of acrobatic clearance off the line as well. But Butland does well to realise that Magoma might not make that, because if he doesn't compensate for Magoma's lack of aerial ability there, it's in, and it's another goal that he's got beat at his front post. That would have been 3 again in the last couple of weeks, which would have been quite bad for his confidence levels as well, probably. But no, I thought he rose to the challenge. But yeah, that first one, I mean, it came back and he worked his way back into a good performance, but he needs to do better with the first one for me.
Yeah, I can see a couple of people in the comments there saying that, I mean, it was a hell of a strike in terms of if it was one of ours, we'd probably be really pleased they'd moved at the last minute if we're being favourable, but we'll stick positive. So 59 minutes, Tommy 2-1. Ralston throws a ball back between him and McGregor, make a bit of an arse of it. That leads to Chermitti, who's just being a nuisance, if we're being perfectly honest. Picks the ball up, Celtic players back off, and the big man punishes them 2-1. What were your reflections on that one?
I think it's one of the goals where, like, Chermitti's obviously scored it, but he's pretty much assisted it as well by getting himself in there and winning the ball back. I think Trusty makes a big error, doesn't he? Because I think when you look at it back, I think it's Connor Barron that's running and kind of making that run away, and Trusty goes with Barron and completely just ignores Chermitti. And I think you've got to think, like, look, this Barron guy has never scored a goal for Rangers before. Like, what is the danger here? Is it Connor Barron or is it Chermitti? And obviously leaves Chermitti just to run into the box. And I think, like, obviously we mentioned Jack Butland being kind of man of the match yesterday. Their goalie, I think he's got to do better as well, to be honest. I don't like when goalies go to save with their feet, really, to be honest, either, because I think it makes their body smaller. I think the better thing to do is to always go with your hand, but obviously it kind of deflects off the top of his boot and goes into the goal. And I must say, I thought I was dreaming, to be honest. 2 Chermitti goals at Parkhead to put us 2-1 up, and I had to pinch myself, really, to be honest, after the season we've had so far, to be in that position. But yeah, the big man makes a goal himself, really, doesn't he? It's all down to him, really. You can't really say anybody else done anything well. Maybe Connor Barron for making the run to keep Trusty with him, but it pretty much was all Chermitti, wasn't it?
No, most definitely. And what did you think of his kind of overall performance? For me, I thought, I say first half, I don't think he kind of offered much other than legs. Didn't see too much quality. A little bits of a nice hold up play. We didn't create nothing for him. He was actually unlucky. I know the one where we touched on earlier where we said he was offside by a mile, but the players didn't know that. And then a kind of really nice slip in and a really clever run from Moore. And obviously a nice finish at close range. But in terms of his overall performance, do you think that kind of there's something there? I know somebody, I think it was Andy Gill, commented. I know I went on a bit of a Twitter rant in terms of get him out on loan, get him to get minutes because he's just not going to make it here. That was less than 7 days ago, I think. And then we kind of seen little shoots of progress against St Mirren. And then obviously yesterday. But what did you think of the big man's overall performance?
Yeah, and I'm the same as you, JB. I thought, like, a couple of weeks ago, and I said it on the pod, I said I'd probably be happy for Chermitti to go out on loan and then we buy another striker in. And now, pretty much a week on, and I'm thinking this guy actually does have something about him. Obviously, there's been a little bit of chat about whether he's maybe more suited to be like a midfielder rather than a striker, kind of a la Joe Linton. A lot of people are saying, which I kind of do see that part of it, but like I think it was Ian that was saying he was wanting Miovski to start on Sunday, but I think like his kind of Chermitti's physicality is kind of one of the strong points. I actually thought second half he take away the goals, I still thought he was brilliant. Holding the ball up. I think he was getting himself involved. First half wasn't bad, but wasn't really getting himself involved as much, really, to be honest. But what I've seen from St Mirren to now, yesterday as well, I'm happy for him to stay, and I'm happy for him to start. And like I say, it could be a confidence thing, because once he got the 2 goals, you see that the little nutmeg that he does, I think, is it on Yang as well in the box. It's kind of like that flip flap elastico, isn't it? Like nutmeg. So it could be just confidence that he was needing. The guy had came here and not scored a goal in however long. So I say it just could be one of the ones that once he gets kind of settles, finds his feet here, I think there could be something there.
Cool. All the Rangers dads like myself just currently googling flip flap to see what that movement is. But
I don't know the correct term for it.
I know exactly what you mean, but no, it was good. So Hef, will come to yourself, mate. So 71 minutes, Celtic 1, Rangers 3. Mikey Moore had the third, assisted by Deji Gazama after some really good work from Diamandi. Obviously, we spoke around Diamandi in terms of being out of form, but played like a guy who had a point to prove. But in terms of the third goal, what were your reflections?
I thought that.
Okay, can you remember it?
At that point, I think I could remember it. Just about. The queue was far too long at the bar, so I didn't get a chance to drink that much during the game. I thought that the third goal just showed just how done in Celtic were by that point in terms of mentality and physicality. Kieran Tierney was still trying to stretch out his leg to try and do something on the ball. It just goes right through him. And then obviously Mikey Moore, you can say what you want about obviously Kasper Schmeichel needs to do considerably better, considering it's not an incredibly powerful shot. It's not even right in the corner. It's a poor effort that he's not managed to get anything on that to obviously put it around the post. But I think when you're in that position and everything's going in your favour and you've got the momentum, you've kind of got to kick the dog when it's down a wee bit and try and get that shot off, because you never know what's going to happen. Like, if their heads are rattled and they don't know what it is that's happening, and you take a wee pop shot like that when it's not really expected, and it just pays off and goes in, then, I mean, you can't really say much more than that. Like, take your chances when you get them. And like in the first one, even if he does save it, capitalise, run in, try and get the second chance, So that's a boy at 18 years old who's just having a pop at that. I mean, I gave him dog's abuse at the start of the season. I thought he should have been sent back to Tottenham. He was woeful. I didn't see why players like Gassama were being moved about and stuff like that. And then since Danny Röhl came in, it just seems it just seems like that's where that £16 million price tag that Transfermarkt put on him comes from. Like, he is a class act. Like, you see him off the pitch, all the stuff that he does in like fan engagement stuff and in with the media, and then he just loves being in and around the club, and that's infectious. See, when he starts doing all of that off camera stuff, like by terms of the way he plays and interacting with the fans when he scores, and then all the stuff that he does on the social media side of things, it doesn't matter. And I know it doesn't matter, but it does make him look a lot more human and a lot more like someone that's a bit more transparent, that you could actually, he's talking about how he's got family connections to Rangers and all this. I mean, I hate to say it, but he gets it. And that's one of those things that you go, how many players have came here, experienced players who come in and say, oh yeah, I know what the league's about, I've done this and I've done that, and I used to watch the games growing up. This is a wee guy who's just like, no, I know what I need to do here, and I'm just going to shoot, because that guy cannot get down. It's going to take him a lifetime to get down to this bottom corner. He's just picked 2 goals out the back of the net. I'm trying it here, and it's won us the game essentially. Like, it's kicked them so far down that there was no way they were getting back up. And what a day! What a in terms of just that nervousness of going, we can't let them back in here, to then just get that goal, just icing on the cake, magic.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think everyone just took certainly in the club, everyone just took a breath, and it was almost like, oh, I mean, my natural reaction, I think, Celtic teams of years gone by, you'd have gone, right, they're going to be a wounded animal now. They're going to come after us. But it almost felt as if they went the other way. It almost as if they've gone, nah, not today, lads. We're chucking it. And it's been interesting. A few of the players, I think, have spoke out, whether that was yesterday, obviously on the back of yesterday, in terms of they're playing for the manager and doing what the manager's telling us to do. What more can we do? When you start to hear things like that starting to creep out, you kind of know that, well, we know something's not right there, but it's kind of it's in the face. But Tommy, I'll come to yourself, mate, in terms of just talking about the opposition, in terms of Celtic's collapse. Kind of, we've seen it over the last few weeks, but did you expect that second half collapse from them to be as drastic as it was? As I say, we'll take the praise on terms of the way that Rangers performed, and we naturally focus on us. But were you taken back as just to how poor they were in the second half?
Yeah, because I think like if you kind of look at patterns from us being at Parkhead, we go 1-0 down and there's usually trouble. There's, I can only think of a handful of times, maybe the Sakala equaliser, we come back one each. I can remember beating them 3-1, being 1-0 down at Parkhead. That was back 2010, I think. So recently, when we go 1-0 down, we really, really struggle there. I've said it, I say it a lot to Ian in these games at Parkhead. I feel like if we get the first goal, we've got a good chance. If we don't get the first goal, then I think we struggle. So at halftime, I'm kind of thinking, well, patterns kind of show us that we won't come back here, So what did go wrong for them? I'm not entirely sure. I don't think they had any fight in the second half. I don't think they had really any answer to our kind of attacks either. They were really kind of poor. Their kind of final ball was really poor. It's just not the Celtic that we're used to, And even though, because of what's happened year on, even 80th minute yesterday, I'm still saying in the pub, this isn't done, and there's still that opportunity that they can get a goal, and then you know what they're like with scoring late on. This is completely different now, to the point where they never really hurt us, did they? They had like maybe a few half chances. I think Maeda had a left foot swing. Apart from that, they got maybe the ball in a few good positions, and it's kind of similar to what I said at St Mirren. We seem to just, when we've got a lead now, we seem to not really give up big, huge chances, really, to be honest. And that's a big difference from them, is that you expect them to put the pressure on when they're behind. And what we saw yesterday was just not. They were just happy for the kind of game to fizzle out a little bit. There was no real fight for them to get back into the game whatsoever, which I love, by the way. I mean, that makes it a lot easier for me watching it, because I'm used to seeing an onslaught. You're used to seeing them coming attacking, and you're kind of thinking when you're watching it, they're going to score here. At no point yesterday did I really think that, the way that this game is going, they're going to get a goal. It just didn't feel like that at all. And then you've got all their fans leaving very early, which kind of shows the players that they don't have any belief in the players either, because the fans aren't even sticking around because they don't believe that the players are good enough to turn it around either. So for them, I don't know. Like, they've obviously got a lot of problems. In terms of like managerial stuff and that, it's early days for him. I think obviously he's lost too many games, hasn't he? So I don't know what happens for them, but I just thought the second half was a complete collapse from them, to the point where I'm thinking, did we really even play that much better, or did they just play a lot worse than what they did in the first half? Obviously, we were better, but did we look so much better because of how bad they were compared to the first half? I don't know, but honestly, like, it's just not something that we see usually. So, well, I'm delighted by it, of course.
Yeah, no, I'm here for it. As I say, their second half collapses in the last few weeks have been a joy to watch. So long may that continue. Hef, I'll come to yourself, mate, in terms of man of the match. As I say, we've and people in the comments, please drop them in who you thought was man of the match, and we'll try and bring up as many as we can. But a few contenders, which is nice to see. But who would you go for?
I'm going to have to say Chermitti, just for that second half performance. I think he kind of spearheads the battle there to go on and win the second half. I think the second goal, the Daniel Kuzan reminiscent goal, where I was almost getting flashbacks to him peeling by and scoring that goal past Boric. So to think that was a player so low on confidence to go on and do that, and I know that Butland obviously dug us out a few holes there as well, but he also kind of handed. I don't think he did hand him the goal, but I think he could have done better in the first one. So I've got to say Chermitti. It's got to be.
Okay,
He's a
cool.
£10 million man.
Yeah, no, yeah, 10 million down the drain, some might say. But I told you I'd get it in. Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that. I mean, it goes to show what a good performance it was. That there was probably a few others that on another day probably would have earned it. I thought Sterling was fantastic. There was a couple of times in the first half where he got the wrong side of Maeda, and that athleticism to just get back and slide and win the ball. I thought his energy was fantastic in terms of, as I said a couple of times, getting us out of trouble. There was one where I think it was he set himself up with a foot race with Tierney, and he gave Tierney a 20-yard start, and the big man ploughed right through and got right up to got us right up the pitch. I think we might have earned another throw in. I see someone's commented Schmeichel is a contender for man of the match. Wouldn't argue with that. But no, delighted to say the second half performance. It's probably fair to say that everybody was probably a 9. I think the first half.
I thought Raskin was amazing second half, compared to the first half especially. I thought everything he done in the second half was just spot on. I think he was honestly, I thought compared to the first half, I think he was breaking the ball up. Assist for the first goal as well. It was a kind of the Raskin that we're used to seeing,
Yeah, I think Andy Mack just touched on there in terms of Raskin. He kind of showed why he's a Belgian international. I thought in that second half, I thought everything done right. He showed that again. I touched on the point earlier, but he showed a little bit of everything. He showed a little bit of dig. Showed a lot of passion. That bit of quality that you need at times as well. It was all there. You do wonder whether this group of players, if we know the confidence has been on the floor pretty much throughout pre-season, then going into the season. You just got to hope that this team can kind of take that confidence and take that almost a little bit of arrogance as well into the certainly the next few weeks and into the rest of the season, because there's a title there to be won. I don't think anyone can kind of question that. So in terms, I'll come to you first, Tommy, and then I'll come to your thoughts, Hef. But Tommy, where do you think this kind of leaves us now in terms of the rest of the season, or certainly in terms of the next block of fixtures? What are you looking for?
I think first of all, if you kind of think about this, we go back to Tuesday. We play St Mirren. They were playing Motherwell. If you think they win that, we win, and then they won Saturday, it could have been 9 points. So now to be kind of free is amazing. You think of when Russell Martin was sacked, and then to now the turnaround is it's massive, So, and I think obviously what we know, so we're level on points with them now, aren't we? And then obviously we play on Tuesday, which could be psychologically could be a good thing because they aren't playing. So we have the opportunity now, albeit we would have a game ahead, but we have the opportunity now to overtake them, which I think psychologically could be a really big thing. But we have to go and do it. That result, right? And we can all enjoy it today. It has to mean something at the end of the season as well. So you can't just do all that hard work and then go and blow it by getting beat off Aberdeen. And I kind of really like Danny Röhl after the game. He was already kind of focusing on Aberdeen. He was talking about how delighted for the win, but then the focus now, we've got a big game on Tuesday, and that's the focus now. So 2 games back to back against Aberdeen. We have to win both of them games now. Otherwise, that just completely takes away what we've just done there. We've done all the hard work now. We need to just keep it going.
Oh, can't argue with that. Hef, anything to add on top of that?
No, I think that's pretty spot on, Tommy. I think that idea of what could have been is the thing that's obviously looming over you, is thinking it almost. I knew it was already a bad taste in the mouth, but if we had just played a bit better at Tynecastle and not gifted them that goal, that you think, obviously it's kind of butterfly effect type stuff. That's not to say that we would have then still won again on Saturday there, but it makes you think of all the other wee 0-0 at Falkirk and all these other games, and they've had the same, and we just need to hope that if we are not in a position to beat Hearts in a run of and obviously we've not done it so far, but if given a wee bit more time in the transfer window I seen there that the post about we need a left back, 100%. If we can strengthen in this transfer window and make it count in some key positions, I think that with the tactics that are being embedded and Danny Röhl wanting the right players to play the way that he wants to do from the start of the game, I think that you've got to hope that we get better. I can't imagine how much we would get worse. So it would be nice to see that if we're on a trajectory where we can get better and Celtic continue to be on a trajectory where they continually get worse, fans start getting raging at boards and throwing sharks and stuff like that, then we're in a position where they're not a problem anymore. Like they'll basically take care of themselves. They'll just self-implode. It then comes on to how can Hearts measure up against in a title challenge where it's not a case of Celtic and Rangers will just battle it out within each other and we'll just take care of ourselves. If it becomes that Rangers push on and make it a two-horse race, and I'm that's far away and I get that, but I'm saying that if they continue going down and we continue to go up, if this stays on the right path, will Hearts bottle then crash? Will the bubble burst when it's more actually tangible, where they go, oh, hold on a minute, we actually could win the league? Then I would like to see how much of them have still got the kind of the brass monkeys to go on and compete at that level, because we've still got to play them a couple of times. They've still got to play other teams. I mean, Motherwell are still playing well. There's not many easy games just now in the Scottish Premier League. Every team seems to be having a go. So you need to be on it every single week. So fingers crossed. I mean, double header against Aberdeen in years gone by, that would have been a potential banana skin that you would have been sitting worrying about going to Pittodrie. But I mean, touch wood, I'm not speaking out of turn here, but they've just got rid of their manager. That can go two ways. I mean, they can have a bit of a bounce back because maybe they didn't really like the way that Jimmy Tilleen was working with them, or it could be that actually they did buy into what he was talking about, but for whatever reason the personnel just couldn't get the results. So you never know how these things work. So it's never a good time to play a team when they've just got rid of their manager, I don't think. I think if you know if the manager's in bad form, at least you can go on what it is that they've done previously and work on it. Whereas I can't imagine that Paul Even's going to come in and do anything too different. But it still throws up that question of, well, what he might throw some mad tactics out there just to try and hold on to try and at least not lose the game, if you know what I mean. He might be a bit more solid at the back. Thanks for the laugh.
Yeah, there we go. So we got another Jambo Bear in the comments. More than welcome, buddy. So no, we had a good laugh as well. So it's all good. It's all good. Cool. Yeah. So in terms of, I think one of the things I was kind of where my mindset was at prior to this pod, if I was thinking back post St Mirren, I was almost thinking, right, what are we going to talk about on Sunday night? I think I was more thinking we're going to be really focusing on where we need to improve. And what positions we need to improve, and I think that will probably be a separate pod again. We'll milk yesterday for everything it's worth, but I'll come to you for yourself first, Tommy, and then Hef. And I know we've spoken around this on previous pods, but the transfer window is open. We've just come through again, probably two of our biggest tests in terms of away to Tynecastle, away to Parkhead. So in terms of the next run of fixtures, then again, you're going to be looking at maximum points, but I do still think that we need a stronger squad in terms of, I mean, Diamandi come off the bench yesterday, but then in terms of looking at the bench to go, right, who else could we bring on yesterday that you go, right, either they'll take us to a new level or they'll give us a different dimension or they'll do like for like. I thought it was quite telling in terms of the amount of substitutions that we did make, considering the amount of effort that must have went into that second half especially. But in terms of yourself, Tommy, in terms of transfers and what would you like to be seeing over the next, I would say next few days, but in terms of the next few weeks?
I think obviously we've touched on it before, but I think the main focus point is left back, isn't it? Because we've only got one kind of really recognised left back, and if he's out, then it's kind of Max Arms that's out there, isn't it? And it's, I suppose Sterling can play there or Tav, but it's not really what you're wanting. So I think like left back would kind of be like the main position. I think like if you look at it, we'll probably see like Rothwell will definitely be leaving, so what we need to look at there is if Rothwell's leaving, we go and buy another centre mid. That centre mid then has to be an improvement on Rothwell, but ideally an improvement on like maybe even like Barron, or Diamandi, and then they kind of drop down and be more squad players for a better player to come in as well. So if we can have a position now where, if you think about it, Joe Rothwell's he's not touched the ball really under Danny Röhl. So if we just get a player like that off the books and then a player that's going to be productive for us, it gives us just another player into the bargain that can kind of help us. I think like I would be kind of looking at like if there is an opportunity to loan Asgard out. I know there's been talk about Josh Windass coming in. I think personally it would be an improvement on Asgard, but I still wouldn't be overly delighted by it. But I think like if we loan Asgard out, that could be another area, that kind of 10 role. If we're going to be playing a 10, we could look to get somebody better in there. Possibly we could be looking at another winger. I would have said another striker, but the way Chermitti's going, I don't know. Maybe we need to ride that out and see how he goes as well. But I think the main focus for me would be a left back, really. I'm not really sure centre back how it's going to go, because I don't think there's been any talk of any loan players returning. So I think in terms of that, and then John Souttar, we're not really going to get rid of John Souttar with 6 months left on his contract. I don't think either. So I don't think there'll be any change kind of centre back position. So I think we'll just need to see kind of left back being the main area, having only one player there.
Okay. Hef, in terms of you, obviously Santa's been and gone now, but what else was on your wish list?
I definitely think left back, and it's not a slight on Jaden McGoma. I think he's been really good in terms of his defensive play. I just don't know. It's just availability. If he has a knock, or if he's, for all we know, he's playing through a knock because we don't have anyone else there. But you talk about strength and depth yesterday and making subs. I actually thought that it was quite telling the fact that he played the full game pretty much, because we had no one else to bring off for him. But in another game, you would have said, right, listen, you've run your race here, well done, but off you come. But instead, we have to take off and put on James Tavernier because we were running out of legs, and we just needed somebody just to kind of strengthen a bit of composure. But if we had someone, I know that the rumour is that we had put in a loan offer for James Penrice. That was rejected. We then put in a transfer bid for him at £2 million. That was then rejected. I think that they signed him for what, £3-4 million. So I don't think they're going to sell him after 6 months for £2 million. The only reason he's probably wanting to come to us is to get some game time, to make himself a bit more available in terms of if there's any injuries or whatever for the World Cup. So it's not in AEK's best interest to sell him at a cut price just now. It's only in his. I think we do need another midfielder. I don't necessarily know if we need another player to play in Asgard's role, because I think we just need to get rid of Asgard's role. I think that position in general just hasn't ever been executed well through Danny Röhl's tactics. The only way that it works well is when we play in another player and he changes the tactics, because I don't think we've ever really seen anyone in that number 10, because of what you said, JB. It makes it less flat. It creates more gaps in the middle of the park, and I don't think it provides enough support up front. So I would be quite happy for Asgard to keep playing in that position should we feel we need to do it. But ultimately, I think we just need a better 6 or an 8, just someone who can get on the ball and carry it forward, and maybe stop relying so much on Raskin to do that work when he's already having to do quite a lot of the defensive duties as well with Barron. I think the winger situation is probably not going to be addressed, but I would like to see another winger, because obviously Mikey Moore won't be here forever. So it would be good to get someone in here. But it's the age-old problem of the January transfer window is you're not going to get someone in here who's flying. Just now, we're going to get someone who's maybe out of favour at a club, or someone that's maybe got 6 months left on their deal. So in terms of who we're going to bring in, I think Rangers need to be targeting that market of players that want minutes for the World Cup and trying to see who's about there. Get some players in from the Stig's notebook, get the boy in for Tromso, get these boys in, get the New Zealand boy that I keep budging on about, but get these players in, but then on top of that, get some of the international players that are on the cuff of potentially being selected for the World Cup. And I think you do yourself well to get to the summer with that. I wouldn't like them to spend the same amount of money that he did in the summer in the January transfer window just to chase it. If we're already there or thereabouts without it.
Yeah, no, good shout. Wouldn't argue with any of that, mate. I think it's a really interesting time for transfers in January in terms of players pushing for squads, in terms of making that World Cup, cementing themselves in there, and I think that's definitely a market that we need to be into. I think in terms of what we're normally looking for is we're looking for that. I'm not going to say project player because I don't think Rangers can ever be treated as a project, but I don't think we should be targeting players that will be great players next year. I think this year we've got touched on Thursday's pod with Shug. I think we've just got to focus on players that can come in now, hit the ground running. Won't be easy, but we need players with, and I think the manager's touched on it a couple of times, kind of the X factor in terms of having the mindset to be able to hit the ground running at a club like Rangers. And that's something that we've seen on many occasions. That won't be easy. So no, we'll wait and see what comes out. But last few minutes we'll just spend kind of looking ahead to Tuesday. This will be the first pod till Tuesday, and then Ian will be on the gantry with one of the lads. But in terms of Tuesday, what are we expecting to see in terms of the bounce on the back of today? I imagine the fans are going to be in good voice. So Hef, I'll come to you for this one. But what are your kind of thoughts on the Tuesday? What are you wanting to see?
I just want to see them go out and get a goal early on and just cement their position, because if we get that goal early on and they've already lost their manager, they're sitting 8th in the league, they're not going to come back from that fighting. I think they're already in quite a low place. Whereas if we hem and haw and pass it about at the back and make it a bit of a turgid game for the first 30 minutes, I think that invites a mistake to happen. So I think we need to go out there early doors and try and get a goal on the board, and then just take coast through the game. I always worry when you're playing two teams back to back in such close proximity, even when it was like home and away games in the European, when it was the old model, you worry that they kind of get a sense of, oh well, I was up against him on Tuesday, so I know where he runs and where he does that. So I would like to see a bit of rotation in the squad for the Tuesday, and then let some of those players that played a lot of minutes on Saturday come back for the follow-up game, and because I think the game at Pittodrie will be a much harder game than the one will be at Ibrox, given that they've just got rid of their manager and obviously that we're on a high. So it would be good to get some of the players who weren't involved in the full game to showcase themselves a little bit, and then on the game at Pittodrie, fire out in what Danny Röhl called his strongest 11 and take it for there.
No, can't argue with any of that. And just one other thing, and again, we'll finish positive. But one of the things that somebody did mention to me in the club yesterday was kind of asking me view on, that was a massive win without James Tavernier in the team in terms of setting the tone and setting the message. He didn't look too happy. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't want my players to be kind of grinning ear to ear if they're not playing. But how much of an impact do you think that had in terms of change of dynamic on the pitch, and or do you think it was very much just a case of I'll come to you on this one, Tommy, in terms of the players just doing the role that they were asked, or do you think there is something there in terms of, because we've all been very critical in terms of James Tavernier in terms of him slowing games down to suit his pace, taking corners in the 93rd minute and kicking them straight out in terms of game management? Do you think what were your kind of thoughts on that?
I think we're a better team without Tav, especially if it is Sterling that's that kind of replacement. I don't necessarily, I'm not necessarily like annoyed when Tav plays. I've not got an issue. I think he has overstayed his welcome at Rangers. I think like maybe by a year, maybe 2 years potentially. We've touched on it, but I've touched on it before. I don't think he's kind of captain. Like I think we could have had a better option for captain over the last few years, in my opinion. I've argued with it about Ian, and he's kind of said, well, football, the way football is now, that everybody's kind of a captain on the pitch, and like it's just an armband that doesn't really mean much, But for me, I think it does. But yeah, I think it was the right idea to rest him. But yeah, I just want to see from now on, I don't mind them coming in and playing, but like if we do have that big game at Parkhead, if we're playing Celtic at Ibrox, even if we're going to Tynecastle, I think I'd rather now see us obviously start our best team, which I don't think includes Tav, and it's like the guys gave us so much, right? He's obviously a Rangers legend, and I don't want to talk bad about a guy like that, but I think now his time is up, really, to be honest, and I think it's time we just kind of phase that out. But like I say, I'm not annoyed when he does play. I just think we had better there in Sterling.
Yeah, no, can't argue with that. Okay, and then just to finish off then, in terms of predictions for Tuesday, Hef, I'll come to yourself first, mate.
I'm going to say 3-0.
3-0, I'll take it. Tommy?
I'll go 2-0.
2-0, okay, we'll take that as
2-0
well.
I'll go.
Okay, no worries.
Chermitti double.
A win's a win, but no, brilliant. Okay, so really good pod, guys. Really enjoyed that. So hope thanks everyone for your comments. If you are watching this again delayed, then please like, subscribe, shares, copy and paste the link, put it in your WhatsApp groups and everything. We're heading towards 10,000 subscribers now, which is free on YouTube. I've said this a few times, but if anyone's unsure how to follow us and set alerts up and anything, then just put a comment, so put something in the comments, and we'll get back to you directly, and we'll get you set up. No danger at all. But no, good pod. Massive thank you to Youssef Chermitti himself, Danny Röhl, and the rest of the lads. So enjoy your evening. Milk it for all it's worth when you go into work tomorrow, and we'll speak to you on Tuesday. Have a good evening. Take care.